Tonight, the convict released from prison into the arms of Islamic extremists.
When did you first embrace Islam?
2006.
Whilst you was in prison?
Whilst I was in prison.
The friend of one of the Woolwich killers who converted others behind bars.
They was becoming Muslim in front of the prison officers, and they felt sort of powerless, you know.
The prison service worried about the threat of radicalisation.
What concerns me most is that there is a significant risk, given the fact that we manage some very dangerous people.
And we go inside to see what impact that can have on the outside.
In prison, people say, when you come out, brother, you should go and fight in Syria.
This is a journey to find out how the threat of Islamic extremism is being dealt with in the one place with the greatest concentration of terrorists and extremists, the prison system.
I'm on my way to Manchester prison, where a prisoner who converted to Islam whilst in prison is going to be released.
He'll be met by fellow Muslims who have driven up from London. Among the group who have made the trip are convicted extremists Abdul Mahid and Mizanur Rahman.
How do you think it's perceived, you being here today, by the prison service, the police, the counter-terrorism units?
I don't really care, to be honest with you. The police are on a witch hunt. So they will have the attitude of, well, you know, what are they up to? Forget about the fact that he needs to get from Manchester to London somehow.
After a 3-hour wait, Michael Coe, whose Islamic name is now Mikhail Ibrahim, is released. He was jailed in 2006 for 8 years for threatening police officers with a shotgun while out on parole for a knife-point carjacking. He went in a gangster and came out a convert to Islam.
What's going on?
You're famous, isn't it?
I'm famous.
How do you feel about your brothers coming to meet you today?
Obviously, this is the love of the brotherhood of Islam. They come to get me, they come to bring me back 300 odd miles. And I love them for the sake of Allah.
When did you first embrace Islam?
2006.
Whilst you was in prison?
Whilst I was in prison.
I want to find out what attracted this 33-year-old from East London to Islam.
Yep.
Yeah? Even though I wasn't Muslim, I always hung around with Muslims. And, you know, after a little time, it rubs off in you, innit? You start listening to people and believing people. And, you know, in the end, I decided this is the way forward. And my life has been much better since.
One of the people who showed him the way forward was Abdul Mahid, who's been convicted of terror-related offences. Mikhail Ibrahim had already converted to Islam by the time they'd met in prison.
I was on a different wing, and then I got transferred across to the unit. And then from there, we just became friends over there. We started talking. He was teaching me about Islam. He's much more knowledgeable than me. So he taught me some of the stuff that I didn't know.
In turn, he was suspected of taking other inmates under his wing and radicalising them.
Some particular officers was asking other Muslim inmates, am I radicalising him? Then they went behind my back to non-Muslim inmates and said, oh, is he trying to bring people to Islam? That's what they seem to fear.
Inmates identified as a potential threat because of their extreme views are usually met by police or probation when they are released on licence. But because Mikhail Ibrahim has served all of his sentence, he's free to be met by Mahid and Rahman.
UK, you will pay! UK, you will pay! Bin Laden on his way!
Rahman, seen here, took part in the Danish embassy protest against a cartoonist accused of belittling the Prophet Muhammad. He was jailed for 4 years for inciting racial hatred and soliciting murder. Mahid was also at the protest. He was jailed for 4 years for soliciting murder and also for encouraging others to fundraise for terrorism. Over the last 10 years, the number of Muslims in prison has doubled to nearly 12,000. That's 1 in 7 prisoners. The prison service can't tell us how many have converted inside or how many are adopting radical views. What we do know is that there are around 100 Islamist terrorists behind bars, and around 500 more have been identified with links to extremist groups.
It does concern me that radicalisation is taking place in prison, and I feel that more of a holistic approach needs to be taken in combating it.
Ismail Lee South has worked with Muslim offenders before and after their release. He's come across prisoners who've been radicalised during their time inside. He says some are being encouraged to go and fight in Syria, and this is a big concern for the security services since the deaths of British jihadis there.
They'll be saying things like the foreign policy issue is oppressing our Muslim brothers and sisters abroad. We need to go abroad to fight the infidels who are oppressing our brothers and sisters, and we have to establish Sharia law.
The prison service says the radicalisation of Muslim inmates is rare, but when it happens, it's serious. Shoe bomber Richard Reed, who tried to blow up an aeroplane, converted in prison. So too did Jermaine Grant, now on trial in Kenya, accused of being part of a bomb plot. Abdul Mia, convicted of plotting to bomb the London Stock Exchange, was radicalised inside.
What concerns me most is that there is a significant risk given the fact that we manage some very dangerous people. And our job is to minimise that risk becoming a reality. So minimise the risk that somebody in prison becomes radicalised and commits a terrorist offence. Our job is to protect the public. That's what we do every day. And what worries me is whenever we fail to do that, in a whole range of different potential scenarios, people could be hurt.
It's now 4 days since prison convert Mikhail Ibrahim was released from jail. Today he's joined a protest against the sale of alcohol in London's Brick Lane. It's been organised by Abdul Mahid and Mizanur Rahman, who met Mikhail from prison.
Those who serve alcohol, those who make alcohol, they have all been cursed.
They want Sharia law to replace democracy in the UK. They follow Anjem Chowdhury, one-time key player of radical group Al Muhajirun, until it was banned under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. Chowdhury's presence sparks anger from people taking part in a larger unrelated rally nearby.
This guy's a clown. He represents nothing about Islam.
Not that. It's not our fault.
Mikhail Ibrahim appears to be acting as the controversial cleric's minder.
And you know something, yeah? You're a big fool as well. None of the other Muslims know anything. Only you guys.
You've been out of prison a week. You come to a meeting like this, people get a little bit upset.
I just came here. I was passing through. Came to see some of my friends. That's it.
Yeah.
You saw that? I didn't do anything.
No, it's because of who you're around, do you not think? I mean, whether it's good or bad, it's because of who you're around. People think that it's trouble.
Yeah, but the people, it says that the people upon the right path will always be in the minority.
He's adopted the same thinking of those around him.
They sell alcohol, it's not allowed. The Quran curses alcohol. Anyone who makes it, transports it, drinks it, consumes it, passes it on to someone else, they're all cursed, all of them.
Today's protest passes off peacefully enough. It's been all talk, but when talk turns to action, the consequences can be deadly serious. Christmas Eve 2012, and radical Islamists are protesting outside St Paul's Cathedral. Anjem Chowdhury is present, so is Mikhail Ibrahim, while out of prison on licence. Also their convert, Jordan Horner, who's taken an Islamic name.
Yeah, my name's Abu Dawood.
He didn't convert in prison. He embraced Islam on the streets of London as a teenager. Within 2 years, he was voicing extreme views.
I hate everything that is associated to British society, because it's all disobedient to the commandments of God, and every bit of British society will be in the hellfire on the Day of Judgment.
The man on the right is Michael Adibawali.
Situation, you know.
Because soon the Sharia is going to be all over the whole world.
Less than 5 months later, he murdered soldier Lee Rigby in Woolwich. The other man is Royal Barnes. He's currently in prison for glorifying the soldier's murder. Before he was sent down for that and other crimes, he and Horner filmed their attempt to bring Sharia law to East London.
Remove yourself away from the mosque. Go away from the mosque now. Muslim patrol. Muslim patrol. We don't respect those who disobey God. We don't respect them.
I'm so appalled.
We don't care if you're appalled at all.
Muslim area, it's Great Britain.
This we don't care. It's not so Great Britain. Not so Great Britain. Do you understand?
There's vigilantes like this.
Vigilantes implementing Islam upon your own necks.
This nighttime intimidation led to the arrest of both Barnes and Horner. Horner was jailed for 16 months. Unlike Mikhail Ibrahim, who went into prison a common criminal, Horner was sent to jail as a convicted extremist and used the time inside to convert other inmates.
Prison officers in Thameside witnessed people become Muslim, meaning in front of them I was giving them what we call Shahada and an invitation and acceptance of Islam. They was becoming Muslim in front of the prison officers, and they felt sort of powerless. They said I was trying to divide Muslims from non-Muslims, trying to get them to follow an extreme version of Islam.
In less than a year, Horner was transferred 4 times to try to stop him radicalising other inmates. This is an important tactic deployed by the prison service.
If somebody is gaining authority or a hierarchy within a prison, moving that individual, disrupting that hierarchy can be a very effective tool at making sure the type of radicalisation that you're referring to doesn't take place.
But according to Horner, moving him from prison to prison didn't work and may have helped spread his views.
Obviously in Thameside, a lot of people became Muslim. In Glen Parva, they restricted me a lot, but I still spoke to people about Islam. They didn't like that. They sent me down back to Feltham. When another individual on the wing became Muslim, they moved me from that wing to another wing on the basis that I had forced him to become Muslim.
I want to find out more about what makes some convicted criminals turn to extreme Islam and what the prison service is doing to try to stop it. There are about 10 convicted terrorists at Whitemoor High Security Prison and around 3 times as many inmates with extremist views. Governor Damien Evans says these prisoners pose a risk that has to be managed.
It is a challenge for staff to distinguish between what is the proper practice of Islam and what might be a particular threat. My staff are highly experienced. They're very, very good at observing prisoners, forming appropriate relationships with them, gathering intelligence and gathering information. They've also been trained in what to look out for in terms of potential radicalising behaviour.
But Mizanur Rahman, who spent time in another high-security prison, says this type of close monitoring can make Muslim prisoners feel stigmatised.
People embracing Islam was seen as radicalism. People praying together, and that is a very basic tenet of Islam, that we pray in congregation. We don't, it's better to pray together than to pray alone. That has nothing to do with radicalism or extremism, but it was treated and seen as radicalism.
Whitemoor has the highest proportion of Muslim inmates of any jail in the UK, more than 40%. Like the majority of British Muslims, most are moderate, and the governor says it would be wrong to view Muslim prisoners through the lens of extremism.
It's very important that we recognise that the vast majority of practice of Islam within prison is fundamentally a good thing. Islam offers a sense of belonging, brotherhood and friendship, and it's important we recognise that. And Islam very often can provide good opportunities for personal change and development.
But one former prisoner recently released after serving 9 years in various prisons for armed robbery says there are other reasons why criminals convert to Islam.
In your first offender and you come into prison, you see a lot of, as they're called, gangsters or whatever, and they want the protection, and they see that a lot of Muslim brothers stick together. They practice religion just so they don't get harmed by any other people, because they know that if you mess with one Muslim, you mess with them all, you know what I mean?
Becoming a Muslim in prison may offer safety in numbers, but on the other hand, many Muslim inmates say they feel unsafe. After Abdul Mahid was released from prison, he started a campaign called Muslim Prisoners. Today, he's outside Paddington Green Police Station, where many terrorist suspects are held. He says he was badly treated in prison and believes many other Muslims are too.
I was transferred to Franklin the week after a massive riot, and I was the first Muslims that the guys in prisons can get hold of, and so they burnt my cell while I was away from my prison cell, and a week later somebody attempted to stab me.
Muslim prisoners tell us they feel less safe than non-Muslim prisoners, and they've done that consistently now for a number of years. They feel threatened by other prisoners, right? And sometimes they'll feel threatened by staff. The danger of prisoners feeling unsafe is they look for protection. And if they don't feel they're being protected by staff, they'll join a group that they think can provide that protection.
It's that sense of feeling unsafe and seeking protection that some fear can play into the hands of extremists seeking to radicalise their fellow inmates.
One of the first things they do is they say, look, if anyone troubles you, tell me, we'll deal with them. If anyone tries to bully you, tries to take liberties with you, you're our Aki, you're our brother, we'll defend you. So it's just like the same way it is in the school playground, the same way it's in the prison.
But rather than offer extremists the chance to spread their ideology, prisons should be the one place where it can be challenged by the state. Key to this is the prison service's specially vetted imams.
We therefore have a very strong group of imams to support Muslims in prison, to understand the Islamic faith, which is not about extremism and hatred.
We asked to interview a prison imam, but the prison service said no. Part of an imam's job is to decide what inmates can read and watch in order to follow their faith. This is the list from Whitemoor Prison of the DVDs and books inmates are allowed. On it is a DVD by the radical preacher Bilal Phillips. He was stopped from entering the UK in 2010 after appearing to justify suicide bombing. I've seen the DVD, and although it's not extreme, I still wanted to know why it was allowed at Whitemoor.
He's been banned from entering the UK by the Home Secretary, Theresa May, yet his material is allowed in a prison, is that right?
As I've said to you, governors have the authority to ban material. I don't know what that material is or says. It's for the governor to make that decision.
The prison service says the contents of the DVD do not contravene existing restrictions, but it's considering how best to deal with material from people who are excluded from the UK. Back on the outside, it's now 4 months since I last saw Mikhail Ibrahim. I've come to see if he turns up at another protest organised by Mizanur Rahman and Abdul Mahid, the men who met him at the prison gates. Like many of their protests, they're confronted by the far right. He arrives with Abu Izzadeen, who was jailed for inciting terrorism abroad and terrorist fundraising. They met in prison. Mikhail Ibrahim told me more about his life. Now he's a free man.
When you haven't got a cause for your life, okay, your life is just like any of these other kuffar. I mean, you know, we get out, we try to make as much money, sleep with as much women as we can, and do whatever else we can. I have a cause. I want to see the establishment of Khilafah. I want to see Islamic State.
Changed person.
Completely changed, 100%.
He's now being promoted as a role model. In this video made in 2012, while he was out of prison on licence, the role model reveals how 9/11 was an inspiration.
And I was just thinking to myself, laying on my cell, and they were saying Bin Laden already. I don't know how they knew, but within a day they knew it was Bin Laden. They're trying to say it was Bin Laden, yeah? So I was just thinking, oh my God, this man is a gangster. This man is on top. You know, this is one guy taking on the whole might of a country. That I can respect. Wallahi, that's the sort of stuff that also initially drew me to Islam.
But it was a terrorist he met 5 years later inside Franklin Prison near Durham who convinced him to convert to Islam.
You know one brother that was onto me, Demir Barrett, by the way, he's doing 40 years for no reason, but he said to me, why don't you come to Islam all the time?
Diran Barrett is one of the UK's most dangerous terrorists. This reconnaissance video filmed by Barrett of New York landmarks was seized in 2004 during the police investigation into the 42-year-old from London. 300 computers, his chemical handbook and terrorist training notes were also discovered. The Hindu who converted to Islam had also filmed the Twin Towers in a way that suggested he knew what was coming. It was in prison serving a minimum of 30 years that Barrett gave Mikhail Ibrahim the invitation to Islam known as Dawah.
He was opposite me in my opposite cell to me. So from then, the first thing, as soon as he saw me, he just came over to me and said, Akhi, are you Muslim? I said, nah, but I've been learning a little bit. He said, brother, trust me, there's nothing but Islam. And he was giving me dawah for about 2 weeks, because 2 weeks after I got taken to the block and moved to another prison. But within that week, brother, the dawah that he gave me, it hit me where no one else dawah hit me.
And that's a problem for the prison service. Converts like Ibrahim are part of a growing Muslim prison population, which is white or Afro-Caribbean. But many prison imams don't share their experience or background.
Most of the prisoners that I've seen in prison, they're UK born and bred. So i.e. they eat fish and chips, they watch EastEnders now and again. So you need someone other than the imam to liaise with them on their level. The sad reality is a lot of the imams who are in prison, a lot of them are not UK born. So this leaves a big gulf of separation. So what's happened is sometimes the person with the largest clout, the biggest mouth, the biggest brawn, they're seen as the imam in the prison.
There are some cases where people won't have confidence in the imam, and certainly it would be wrong to sort of load all the responsibility for dealing with this onto the imam. So I think extremism is a security issue.
Diran Barrett, the Al-Qaeda terrorist, was moved from Franklin Prison to Fort Sutton near York. It was there last May that 3 men associated with him carried out an attack which rocked the prison service. It happened just 4 days after the killing of Lee Rigby. Firoz Khan, Fuad Awali and convert David Watson are all convicted murderers serving life sentences. They became devout inside, growing beards and praying 5 times a day, but there were also signs of radicalisation. Khan had walked out of Friday prayers after the imam offered condolences to the Rigby family. He told a prison officer Muslims have a duty to fight back, and that's why people were getting killed. Just after 4 p.m, Khan and his accomplices, Awali and Watson, lay in wait. Their target, prison officer Richard Thompson, who they thought had been in the military. They took Thompson by surprise and bundled him into a room. Awali threatened the prison officer with a makeshift knife.
Stop struggling! I've killed 2 people already. I'll kill you! I'll kill you!
The 3 inmates were now in control. Khan then made his demands over the prison tannoy, the release of a radical cleric and a woman who attempted to murder an MP.
Peace be upon you. We have taken an officer hostage.
Thompson suffered a fractured cheekbone during the siege, which only ended when his attackers were persuaded to surrender. Khan and Awali were found guilty of threats to kill, and Khan also of assault, but all 3 were cleared of false imprisonment.
Do you think the incident in Fort Sutton was an act of terrorism?
I think it was a serious and unacceptable criminal act. And it's not for me to define whether it's terrorism or not. It was a pretty horrific incident for the officer to go through.
After the siege, the 3 men were moved to other prisons. It was at Belmarsh High Security Prison that Jordan Horner says he met 2 of them.
I was in segregation with Fuad Awali, and I was on main population with Brother Khan. These people are beautiful individuals who love Allah and Islam.
It's been 8 years since the government's Prevent strategy to combat the spread of radical Islam was rolled out in prisons.
Some programmes have been introduced to challenge the extremist mindset, but these courses are voluntary and few convicted terrorists and extremists have been willing to engage.
You can't force somebody to change a view. And there is no evidence of anyone forcing somebody to change a view. We've got to work very hard, sometimes over a very long period, in order to make effective change with people.
Did they attempt to de-radicalise you?
De-radicalisation system. To a certain extent, I'd say there's only so much they can do, you know? When you allow me to come out for association, you're giving me the ability to praise Allah as a congregation amongst Muslims, yeah? So even in the hardest of times, there's always a blessing that Muslims can take out of the prison system.
On the outside, the government is now giving extremists like Jordan Horner less choice. He's the first person to be given a new type of anti-social behaviour order. The aim is to restrict him.
These conditions have been put on me, says that you can't do the basics of Islam. You can't invite people to Islam. I can't make any unsolicited approach to any individual speaking about the concepts of Sharia law.
And how long is this ASBO in place?
5 years. But that means that all they're trying to do is they're trying to put as much restrictions on me for as long as possible so they can, you know, as they say, sleep well at night.
But the authorities have limited control over Mikhail Ibrahim. He's never been on a de-radicalisation programme inside or outside of prison and doesn't believe he needs to.
I follow the rules of Islam to a T. The people that teach me, they teach me only the ahkam of Islam. What the other people who have ulterior motives deem as extreme is their business. For me, I'm not extremist.
And that's a big challenge for the prison system. All the former prisoners we've spoken to say the tactics used to challenge them don't work. But unless a way is found, what the prison service calls the small but significant risk of prisoners becoming radicalised could become a much bigger threat.
Coming up, the amazing people of Sunderland turn out in force. DIY SOS is back for a big build next. On BBC Two, A-listers, royalty, they've all stayed there. Go inside Brazil's famous Copacabana Palace Hotel now. And on BBC Three, teenage life in cars. Secret footage of our barely legal drivers.